She began life on the streets of Constantinople. A performer, a courtesan, dismissed as scandalous. But she rose higher than anyone imagined. She became an empress, and one of the most powerful women in Byzantine history. But her legacy is not just one of reform and power, it is also stained in blood. In 532 AD, Theodora stood before her husband, Emperor Justinian, and made a choice that led to the deaths of nearly 30,000 people. This is the story of Theodora and the Nika riots. Theodora's beginnings were far from imperial. Her father worked with animals in the hippodrome, the very arena where her destiny would one day be sealed. As a teenager, she performed on stage, and in the eyes of Byzantine elites, this was little better than prostitution. But Theodora was clever, ambitious, and unshakably determined. She caught the attention of Justinian, the future emperor, who was so captivated by her intelligence and charm that he made her his wife. When Justinian became emperor, Theodora was not content to sit silently by his side. She was his partner, his advisor, and his equal in power. The Byzantine capital was a city divided. Two great factions, the Blues and the Greens, dominated chariot racing in the hippodrome. But they weren't just sports teams. They represented politics, religion, and social class. Their rivalries often turned violent. By 532, resentment against Justinian was reaching a breaking point. His harsh taxes and corruption scandals made him deeply unpopular. When a chariot race ended in unrest, the chants of the crowd changed. They shouted not for victory, but for rebellion. "Nika! Nika!" they roared. "Conquer! Conquer!" The chants grew into chaos. The Blues and the Greens, usually mortal enemies, united against the emperor. Within hours, Constantinople was in flames. Rioters stormed the streets, freed prisoners, and burned buildings. For 5 days, the city was consumed by fire and blood. The mob even declared a new emperor, threatening to topple Justinian from power. Inside the palace, panic spread. Justinian was ready to flee the city. The empire itself hung by a thread, but Theodora refused to back down. In the palace, Theodora's mind raced. She remembered her own struggles, the years spent fighting for survival, and the lessons learned from hardship. She knew that true power was not in fleeing, but in standing firm when others faltered. As flames devoured the city, Theodora's resolve only grew stronger. She saw in the chaos a test of her will, a moment to shape history, not to be swept away by it. She walked the silent corridors, her footsteps echoing with the weight of destiny. Theodora understood that her choices would decide the fate of thousands, and she would not let fear dictate her actions. While others panicked, Theodora gathered her composure. She summoned her advisors, her voice calm and commanding, determined to inspire courage in those around her. In that darkest hour, Theodora's words became a beacon. She reminded the court of their duty, of the honor that came with sacrifice, and of the legacy they would leave behind. Theodora's courage was forged in adversity. She had faced scorn and hardship, yet she never wavered. Now, as empress, she would not abandon her people or her throne. She looked back on her journey, from the hippodrome's shadows to the palace's golden halls. Every trial had prepared her for this moment of crisis. Theodora's determination inspired those around her. Her presence alone was enough to steady trembling hands and give hope to the hopeless. "I do not care if I live or die. Royalty is a fine burial shroud, and I shall never live to see the day when I am no longer called empress." As the court listened, Theodora's words cut through the fear. She spoke not just as an empress, but as a survivor, someone who knew the price of surrender. Her words stunned the court. For Theodora, it was better to die a ruler than live in exile. She gave Justinian the courage to fight back, no matter the cost. Her resolve became the empire's shield. Theodora's unwavering spirit gave Justinian the strength to act, to reclaim control, and to face the storm head-on. In the days that followed, Theodora's leadership would be remembered as the turning point. She had transformed fear into action, and despair into hope. The smoke that rose over Constantinople marked the end of the riots, but also the beginning of Theodora's legend, a woman who refused to be defined by her past and who shaped the destiny of an empire. With his resolve hardened, Justinian ordered his generals, the legendary Belisarius and the Gothic commander Mundus, to end the riots once and for all. They lured the rebels into the hippodrome with promises of peace, then sealed the exits. The gates of the hippodrome slammed shut, echoing with the finality of fate. The crowd, once hopeful for mercy, now realized the trap. Panic surged through the masses as soldiers took their positions, the air thick with dread. Roman soldiers stormed the arena. The rioters, unarmed and trapped, were slaughtered where they stood. The arena, once alive with cheers, now filled with desperate cries. Families clung to each other, pleading for mercy. The soldiers advanced, their faces set, as history prepared to turn a page written in blood. The chaos was overwhelming. Dust and fear swirled in the air. Some tried to scale the walls, others begged for forgiveness, but there was no escape. Theodora's decision echoed in every corner of the hippodrome. The hippodrome, once a place of cheering crowds and chariot races, became a graveyard. When the swords fell silent, the arena was transformed. The ground was littered with the fallen, and the cries faded into a haunting silence. The cost of power had been paid in full. When it was over, 30,000 men, women, and children lay dead. The aftermath was devastating. The seats that once held thousands now stood empty, a chilling reminder of the day's horror. Survivors wandered in shock, searching for loved ones among the ruins. The city outside the hippodrome was eerily quiet. News of the massacre spread quickly, and the people of Constantinople mourned. The empire would never forget the day the streets ran red. Soldiers marched through the city, restoring order with a heavy hand. The rebellion was crushed, but the scars would remain for generations. Theodora and Justinian's rule was secure, but at a terrible price. In the palace, Theodora stood resolute. She had chosen the path of strength, knowing the consequences. Her gaze was unwavering, even as the weight of her decision settled on her shoulders. As the smoke cleared, the city began to rebuild. Theodora's legacy was forever changed. She was no longer just an empress. She was a symbol of resolve and a reminder of the cost of power. The massacre crushed the rebellion. Justinian and Theodora's rule was secure. From that day on, no one dared to challenge them so openly again. The city slowly returned to life, but the memory of the massacre lingered. Theodora's reforms continued, but so did the whispers of her ruthlessness. The people looked to the future, forever changed by the events they had survived. Theodora continued to wield enormous influence, pushing through laws that expanded women's rights, protected the poor, and curbed forced prostitution. In the quiet of the churches, prayers were offered for the lost. Theodora herself sought solace, reflecting on the choices that had defined her reign. New laws were signed, and the empire moved forward. Yet, every signature was a reminder of the power and the burden that rested in Theodora's hands. Yet history could not forget the price of her courage. 30,000 lives extinguished in a single day because one empress refused to give up her throne. Candles flickered in memory of the fallen. The city mourned, but also began to heal, guided by the strong hand of its empress. Was Theodora a hero, a visionary who secured the empire and advanced justice? Or was she a tyrant whose thirst for power left a river of blood in her wake? Perhaps she was both. What cannot be denied is her place in history. A woman who rose from the gutter to the throne of Byzantium, and who proved that when empires tremble, sometimes it is the empress who decides the fate of thousands. A single candle burned in the darkness, symbolizing hope and remembrance. Theodora's story was far from simple, but her impact would never be forgotten. In the centuries that followed, Theodora's name echoed through the halls of history. Her choices, both merciful and merciless, became lessons for rulers and dreamers alike. She remains a symbol of resilience, ambition, and the enduring complexity of power. Theodora's story is a reminder that power always comes at a cost. For her, that cost was written in the blood of 30,000 citizens, and it is why Empress Theodora is remembered not only as a reformer and a ruler, but as the woman behind one of the greatest massacres in ancient history. The screen fades to black, leaving us to ponder the legacy of Empress Theodora. Her story endures, a testament to ambition, sacrifice, and the enduring power of a single decision.